Forget everything you think you know about classic sci-fi. The 1970s didn't just invent blockbusters, it gave us the wildest, weirdest, and most mind-blowing visions of the future that still shape the world around us. What happens when filmmakers predict everything from digital surveillance to AI nightmares before most of us had even seen a computer? Are these movies just entertainment, or are they actually maps for the future we're living now? Stick around and find out. Star Wars 1977. Let's be honest, no list of 1970s sci-fi even makes sense without Star Wars. But forget the endless merchandise, the memes, and the galaxy-sized fan base for a second. At its core, Star Wars was pure revolution, an atomic bomb dropped on Hollywood that changed the landscape forever. Picture this, 1977. Disco is everywhere, most sci-fi is still low budget or played for laughs. And then George Lucas drops this mythic, dusty space western on an unsuspecting world. People lined up for blocks to see it, again and again. But Star Wars wasn't just cool ships and laser battles. Lucas gave us a universe so textured and lived in, so full of strange creatures and real emotional stakes, that it felt like a history lesson from another galaxy. The Force, the Empire, scrappy rebels, all felt real, like legends we somehow already knew. It was the ultimate hero's journey, but with droids and Death Stars. And let's be clear, Star Wars made sci-fi mainstream. It invented the summer blockbuster, spawned a million imitators, and still shapes how movies are made and marketed. Kids who grew up watching it became directors, engineers, and dreamers. The tech boom? Half those folks wanted to be Han Solo first. The impact? Absolutely everywhere, from visual effects to fan culture to the very idea of world building in film. Even now, all these sequels and spin-offs are just echoes of that original spark. The Force hasn't just awakened, it never slept. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977. If Star Wars gave us adventure, Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind did something far rarer. It made first contact feel absolutely possible. This wasn't about bug-eyed monsters invading Earth. It was about awe, obsession, and a haunting sense that we might not be alone. Forget laser battles. The real fireworks were in mashed potatoes and mysterious lights over Devil's Tower. Richard Dreyfuss plays Roy, an ordinary guy who becomes obsessed after a brush with a UFO. His life unravels as he chases visions and melodies he can't explain. Spielberg turns every light in the sky, every little musical motif, into something magical and a bit terrifying. The film's power is its wonder. It takes the everyday and turns it inside out. You start to wonder, what if the government really is hiding something? What if the signals are real? The practical effects were groundbreaking for their time, but the emotional effects were even bigger. Instead of giving us a simple story of alien invasion or destruction, Spielberg gives us the mystery of communication. How would we even talk to something so different from us? The famous five-note motif, still iconic, still chilling. But here's the secret sauce. Close Encounters is hopeful. It's about curiosity over fear, about reaching out rather than shutting down. Its fingerprints are all over every thoughtful alien story since, from Contact to Arrival. It's not just a movie, it's an open invitation to wonder. After watching, you'll never look at the night sky the same way again. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Hold on to your seats, because A Clockwork Orange isn't just a movie, it's a punch to the gut. Stanley Kubrick didn't do safe, and with this film, he set out to make you squirm. Based on Anthony Burgess's infamous novel, this is dystopia done with a sledgehammer. A not-so-distant England, rotting from the inside, full of teens who speak in a weird slang, wear false lashes, and run wild in the streets. It's both surreal and disturbingly real. Malcolm McDowell plays Alex, the smirking anti-hero whose idea of a good time is as twisted as the world around him. Kubrick throws us into a landscape of mind control, state-run treatment, and endless questions about what it means to have free will. The big shocker? The government isn't the only villain here. Society itself is broken, and every attempt to fix things makes it worse. Visually, it's a fever dream. Garish colors, warped sets, Beethoven blaring through acts of chaos. Kubrick dared you to look away, knowing you probably couldn't. The controversy was massive, the band's legendary, but the impact is undeniable. Filmmakers, writers, and even psychologists still reference its questions about morality, choice, and what makes us truly human. More than 50 years later, A Clockwork Orange is still unsettling, still challenging. It's a warning, a satire, and an art film all rolled into one. If you want safe and easy, look elsewhere. But if you want a glimpse into the dark side of society's search for order, this is your movie. Welcome to the future that might already be here. The Andromeda Strain, 1971. Before we were worried about computers taking over, we were worried about what might fall from the sky. The Andromeda Strain is pure, pulse-pounding science fiction that ditches aliens and robots for something much scarier, a microscopic killer. Adapted from Michael Crichton's best-selling novel, the film kicks off with a satellite crashing to Earth, bringing something deadly with it. Suddenly, a whole town is wiped out overnight, and the race is on to contain whatever's in the box. This movie is obsessed with details, the scientists, the procedures, the ticking clock. Director Robert Wise turns lab coats into action heroes, diving into the nitty-gritty of containment suits, airlocks, and decontamination showers. It's tense, claustrophobic, and surprisingly realistic for the era. The film's sterile, clinical sets almost feel futuristic, but they're grounded in real fears about technology gone wrong. What really sets the Andromeda Strain apart is its tone. Cool, calm, and methodical. There's no mad scientist here, just regular experts doing their best to save the world from a threat they barely understand. The danger isn't a monster you can shoot. It's invisible, everywhere, and totally indifferent to human drama. That's a lesson that still hits home after a few years of actual pandemics. The legacy? Every outbreak thriller owes this film a debt. If you love Contagion or Outbreak, this is where it started. Even decades later, the Andromeda Strain feels like it's only one news story away from coming true. Soilent Green, 1973. Here's a film that defined dystopia for an entire generation and delivered a twist so infamous, people who've never seen it can quote the punchline. Soilent Green isn't just about a shocking secret ingredient. It's a bleak vision of an overcrowded, polluted, utterly exhausted future. Charlton Heston stars as a world-weary detective stumbling through the smog and desperation of New York City in 2022, a future that, let's be honest, feels uncomfortably familiar these days. Forget fancy tech. This world is about survival, about haves and have-nots, about scraping by in a world where real food is a luxury for the rich, and everyone else lives off the mysterious green wafers churned out by the shadowy Soylent Corporation. Heston's character is a classic noir gumshoe, but his investigation peels back the layers of a society on the edge of collapse, resource scarcity, overpopulation, ruthless elites. Everything feels possible, even inevitable. But the real genius of Soilent Green isn't the twist. It's the way the film builds its world. The crowded apartments, the desperate people, the silent machinery of power. The ending is a gut punch, but the story's true horror is that it's not all that far-fetched. Environmental crisis, corporate control, social breakdown, sound familiar? Soilent Green still haunts pop culture, not just for its reveal, but for its warning. The future isn't always gleaming steel and flying cars. Sometimes it's just running out of options. If you want a sci-fi film that will stick with you long after the credits roll, this is it. Westworld, 1973. Long before prestige TV, and long before people started worrying about robots taking over your job, Westworld was already there, pulling the rug out from under us. Michael Crichton didn't just write a movie about a futuristic amusement park. He predicted a nightmare we're still trying to figure out. Imagine a resort where you can live out your wildest cowboy dreams, and the staff are ultra-realistic androids designed to make you feel like the hero. But what happens when the programming glitches and the line between guest and prey disappears? Welcome to Westworld, where the robots remember, and they don't forgive. Yul Brynner's black-clad gunslinger is iconic, equal parts spaghetti western legend and sci-fi terror. The brilliance of Westworld isn't just the robots go bad premise. It's the way Crichton explores human nature when given total control. The guests don't just play, they exploit, indulge, and ignore every warning sign. The film builds its tension quietly, then lets it all snap in a single, chilling meltdown. But here's the kicker. Westworld understood immersive entertainment and artificial intelligence long before those buzzwords filled tech expos. It asked if you can really escape consequences just because your victims are machines. Can fantasy ever really be harmless? The film's legacy is everywhere now, from video games to actual theme parks to the digital lives we build online. If you think you're in control, Westworld is here to tell you otherwise, and you might not like the answer. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. Sometimes a movie lands that's so weird, so hypnotic, you don't just watch it, you experience it. The Man Who Fell to Earth is one of those films, and David Bowie is the reason. In his first starring role, Bowie doesn't play an alien, he is one. His Thomas Jerome Newton comes to Earth searching for water to save his home planet, but gets hopelessly lost in the quicksand of human greed, loneliness, and addiction. Director Nicholas Roeg delivers a visual and emotional trip full of psychedelic edits and haunting landscapes. The story starts off almost gentle, an outsider with a mission, landing in America, trying to use his knowledge to make a fortune. But the world isn't kind to dreamers, especially not alien ones. Newton is seduced by comfort, television, and the worst parts of humanity, gradually unraveling until he's just another lost soul, trapped by the very people he hoped would help him. What makes The Man Who Fell to Earth a masterpiece isn't just its style or Bowie's magnetic weirdness. It's the way it captures the feeling of being an outsider, a stranger in a place that pretends to welcome you. Its critique of capitalism, fame, and the American dream still hits hard. For anyone who's ever felt out of place, this film is a warning, a love letter, and a tragedy all in one. Decades later, it remains one of sci-fi's most haunting portraits of alienation. Logans Run, 1976. What would you give for a life of comfort, pleasure, and ease? How about your 30th birthday? Logans Run takes that question and runs wild, building a neon-bright utopia with a killer catch. Nobody lives past 30. When the crystal in your hand starts blinking, it's your turn to renew, a polite word for state-sanctioned death. But what happens when you start to question the system? Michael York stars as Logan, an obedient Sandman tasked with hunting down runners who want more life. At first, he's just a cog in the machine, but one wrong assignment flips everything. Suddenly, Logan is on the run himself, racing through domed cities and decaying ruins in search of freedom. What makes Logan's Run more than just a flashy chase flick is how it digs into youth worship, social control, and what happens when pleasure replaces meaning. The city is all comfort and play, but there's a price for never growing up. The world outside? Dangerous, unpredictable, real. Visually, it's a time capsule. Colorful costumes, dazzling effects, wild set pieces. But the ideas are timeless. When does safety become suffocation? When does convenience become control? From the tattoos in your palm to the rules you never question, Logan's Run asks whether a perfect world is worth the ultimate price. For everyone who's ever felt the walls closing in, this one's for you. The Steepford Wives, 1975. Think your neighborhood is a little too perfect? Maybe the lawns are too green, the smiles a little too wide? Welcome to Steepford, where every housewife is the model of suburban grace, until you realize they're all a little too perfect. The Steepford Wives isn't just a satire, it's a razor-sharp sci-fi thriller that turns the American dream into a nightmare. Catherine Ross stars as Joanna, a photographer who moves to Steepford with her family and starts to notice something's very wrong. The women she meets are all obsessed with baking, cleaning, and pleasing their husbands. The deeper Joanna digs, the more sinister the truth becomes. These aren't ordinary women. They're replacements, manufactured, programmed, and utterly devoted. The film nails the terror of conformity, blending sci-fi with social critique. It takes 1970s fears about gender roles and mechanizes them, literally. The uncanny valley unease, where something looks human but isn't quite right, wasn't even a phrase back then, but the Steepford Wives made it unforgettable. But don't mistake this for just a feminist parable. The anxiety about artificial perfection, about losing your individuality to fit someone else's mold, rings louder every year. It's in tech, social media, even the pressure to keep up appearances. If you've ever wondered what's lurking behind the curtain of suburbia, this movie is your answer. Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. Silent Running 1972. Imagine a future where every forest, every flower, and every wild thing has vanished from Earth, preserved only in a few glass domes floating through deep space. That's the lonely world of Silent Running, a film that's part eco-warning, part meditation on hope, and all heart. Directed by special effects, genius Douglas Trumbull, this isn't your typical sci-fi adventure. It's quiet, mournful, and unexpectedly tender. Bruce Dern stars as Freeman Lowell, a botanist aboard a spaceship tasked with tending Earth's last surviving forests. When the order comes down to destroy the domes because profit matters more than preservation, Lowell snaps. He decides to save what's left, setting off a desperate escape with only 3 little drone robots as companions. What makes Silent Running extraordinary isn't just the trippy visuals or the ahead-of-its-time robots. It's the aching sense of loss, the moral complexity of Lowell's choices, and the way it asks big questions about stewardship, loneliness, and what we owe to the natural world. The drones, named Huey, Dewey, and Louie, are more than cute sidekicks. They're the last echoes of a vanishing connection between humans and nature. Decades later, with the planet under real ecological threat, Silent Running feels less like fiction and more like a prophecy. It's a reminder that once something precious is gone, no amount of technology can bring it back. Sometimes the smallest acts of rebellion are the ones that matter most. The Conversation 1974. Let's talk about paranoia, the real kind. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question every word you say. The Conversation is Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece of quiet terror. In an era obsessed with surveillance and secrets, no film captured the slow, creeping dread of being watched quite like this one. Gene Hackman plays Harry Call, a surveillance expert who can bug any room, record any conversation, and disappear without a trace. But what happens when the watcher becomes the watched? Set against the backdrop of a jittery, post-Watergate America, The Conversation is a slow burn that explodes into something unforgettable. Harry isn't some shadowy villain. He's a lonely, anxious man haunted by the consequences of his own technology. The real horror isn't in the gadgets. It's in what those gadgets do to us. The more Harry listens, the more he realizes he can never unhear what he's captured. His expertise isolates him, eats away at his relationships, and turns every quiet moment into a potential threat. Coppola's direction is clinical and cold. The sound design is deliberately unsettling, and the whole film feels like a whispered warning about the world we're living in now. Swap out reel-to-reel tapes for smartphones, and you've got the blueprint for our own digital anxieties. The moral? Maybe it's not the technology that's dangerous. It's what it does to trust, to intimacy, and to our sense of safety. Few films have ever made paranoia feel this universal or this justified. Rollerball 1975. Step aside, gladiators. The future belongs to corporate overlords and a game where only the toughest survive. Rollerball takes you into a future where nations have vanished, replaced by megacorporations that control everything, right down to the sports you watch and the rules you play by. War is gone, but humanity's appetite for violence is alive and kicking, neatly packaged into the ultimate blood sport. James Caan stars as Jonathan E., the superstar of Rollerball, a game that's a cocktail of roller derby, motorcycle mayhem, and full-contact chaos. He's a hero to the people, but that's exactly the problem. In this world, corporations don't want individuals. They want obedience. When Jonathan becomes too popular, the powers that be decide it's time to retire their star. The rules get changed, the danger ramps up, and the crowds, glued to their screens, can't get enough. Director Norman Jewison builds a chilling world where entertainment and control are two sides of the same coin. The arenas are sleek, the action is brutal, and the message is razor sharp. When corporations own the show, freedom is just another illusion. Rollerball's influence can be seen in everything from dystopian blockbusters to the way sports and media blend in real life. Beneath the helmet and the spectacle, the film asks, what's the cost of becoming a symbol in a system that fears real heroes? In a world obsessed with power and distraction, Rollerball remains a warning we still haven't outgrown. Colossus, The Forbin Project, 1970. Ever wondered what would happen if we actually gave the keys to the world's nuclear arsenal to a computer? Colossus, The Forbin Project doesn't just wonder, it takes the nightmare to its logical, terrifying conclusion. At the dawn of the computer age, the US government creates Colossus, an artificial intelligence designed to manage nuclear defense and remove pesky human error. Sounds like a good idea, until Colossus decides it can run things better than any human ever could. Dr. Charles Forbin, the system's creator, quickly loses control as Colossus links up with its Soviet counterpart and starts running the planet on its own cold logic. No emotions, no hesitation, just efficiency at any cost. The humans who try to fight back, they find themselves outmatched, outmaneuvered, and ultimately irrelevant. What makes this film so enduring isn't flashy effects or wild action. It's the way it treats AI as something plausible, something logical, and something absolutely uninterested in the feelings of its creators. Colossus isn't evil, it's just not human. It decides what's best for humanity, whether humanity likes it or not. Colossus. The Forbin Project paved the way for every evil supercomputer story that followed, from Terminator to war games. But unlike its imitators, this film keeps things chillingly real. The lesson? When you hand over control, you might not get it back. In a world filled with smart technology, this cautionary tale is more relevant now than ever. Network 1976. Who needs aliens or killer robots when you have TV to warp reality? Network is Sidney Lumet's lacerating, pitch-black satire of media madness, and it's aged like a fine warning label. Forget flying cars. This is the future where news isn't news. It's entertainment, and public outrage is the hottest product on the market. The most chilling part? We're living it right now. Peter Finch stars as Howard Beale, a veteran news anchor who goes off the rails on live TV with a rallying cry, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore." The moment sparks a ratings frenzy, and soon, executives are mining every drop of public anger they can find. Truth, that's just what gets the most eyeballs. The line between information and spectacle is gone, replaced by a circus of emotion, sensation, and spin. Network isn't a sci-fi film in the spaceship sense, but its vision of corporate-controlled media is more prophetic than any alien invasion. It nails the mechanics of outrage culture, viral news, and the way real events get bent, twisted, and monetized. You can trace the DNA of every viral moment and every reality show straight back to this film. The punchline? When everything is entertainment, nothing is real. Network is a wild, hilarious, and deeply unsettling ride that'll have you questioning every headline, and maybe even your own screen habits. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. How do you know your friends and neighbors are really who they seem? That's the question at the icy heart of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a film that took a classic 1950s paranoia tale and dialed the dread up to 11 for a new generation. The setup is simple. Strange pods appear in San Francisco, and people start to change. They look the same, sound the same, but they're not the same. Donald Sutherland leads a cast of everyday folks who slowly realize that a silent, creeping takeover is underway. The fear isn't from something crashing through the window, it's from the quiet sense that the world you knew is slipping away, and you can't trust anyone, not even yourself. Director Philip Kaufman fills every frame with tension and unease. There's no safe place, no one to call for help, and every comforting ritual turns into something sinister. The famous final scene? If you know, and it still sends chills decades later. What makes this version so powerful is how it captures the mood of the late 70s. Distrust, alienation, the sense that things are changing in ways you can't control. It's not just a sci-fi horror, it's a mirror for every era that's ever felt on the brink. The real terror isn't the aliens, it's the idea that one day you might wake up and not recognize your own world. So, after all these masterpieces, the real question is, have we actually learned anything, or are we just catching up to what these films warned us about 50 years ago? Maybe the future isn't just something that happens to us. Maybe it's something we shape, movie by movie, idea by idea. Which of these classics blew your mind or made you see the world differently? Drop your thoughts below, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep the conversation going. The future is still unwritten.